What's up, guys? This is EJ Holland with the Wolverine.com, and we're back with another Michigan recruiting report. The Wolverines are set to take on Alabama in the Rose Bowl. What would a win for Michigan mean for recruiting? Well, we're going to talk about that, especially 5 targets that Michigan's win could impact. So a Michigan win over Alabama can definitely move the needle with these 5 recruits. We're going to talk about them, but before we do, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also subscribe to the Wolverine.com for all your latest Michigan recruiting intel. But again, we're going to be focusing in on what a win over Alabama would mean for Michigan recruiting, specifically with 5 guys they could move the needle for. So let's go ahead and start off with 5-star quarterback Bryce Underwood. Underwood is set to make his decision in about a week, and that doesn't leave much time for Michigan to make any final impressions on him. The On3 recruiting prediction machine still says LSU with a 91.7% chance of landing him. Now, Underwood did make a bit of a surprise visit to Alabama right before the dead period. Michigan has been a constant in his recruitment dating back to, his time as a middle schooler. He visited for the game against Ohio State. And I think Michigan is still in the mix here. Maybe a win over Alabama puts a little something extra in his mind, especially coming off the visit to Tuscaloosa and LSU recently losing their offensive coordinator. Maybe the window opens up a little more for Michigan to surprise many, upset the apple cart, and maybe land Underwood. We'll see. But yeah, I think a win over Alabama could at least give him some extra things to think about down the stretch of his recruitment. Let's go ahead and move on to our next recruit, and that is 5-star offensive tackle David Sanders. Now, Sanders has a lot of connections to Michigan. His offensive line coach at Providence Day is former Michigan offensive lineman Jonathan Goodwin. He is a teammate of Michigan signees Channing Goodwin and Jaden Davis. And I think Georgia, Clemson, and Alabama have long been considered the favorites in this recruitment. Michigan has gotten him to campus. He was in Ann Arbor for the barbecue at the Big House. He was supposed to be back on campus for the game against Ohio State, but did not make it. Now, with him kind of favoring the schools in the South, I think a win over Alabama could give him another reason to really think about Michigan. Obviously, the offensive line production is there, winning back-to-back Joe Moore awards. The offensive line production in general, sending guys to the NFL. Sharon Moore, just a fantastic coach, a guy who really knows how to develop offensive linemen. So I think Sanders understands that the offensive line production at Michigan is obviously real. And I think he obviously sees the success that Michigan is having on the field recently. I think a win over Alabama with his recruitment being so South focused could really move the needle with him. Let's go ahead and move on to our next recruit, and that is on 300 edge Christopher Burgess out of Chicago. Simeon Burgess has been one of the more interesting recruits in the 2025 recruiting cycle. Michigan's been a little hot and cold on him as they kind of organize their 2025 edge board. And I think that goes for most of his, finalists as well. Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Alabama, the other schools in contention in his recruitment. Now, even though Michigan has been up and down with Burgess, I do think they would take him if he decides to commit to the Wolverines next week. He is set to make his decision the same day as Bryce Underwood, January 6th. So that's definitely something to watch. Apparently has not informed the coaching staffs of a decision. So maybe a win over Alabama gives him a little something else to think about going into next week's decision if he's still undecided. He is supposed to be making his commitment live on NBC at the All-American game, which is for 2024 prospects, but they do bring in a select group of 2025s, a select group of underclassmen to make announcements and experience the games, and Burgess is one of them. Let's go ahead and move on to five-star defensive back DJ Pickett. Now, Pickett just released his top group. Michigan is in that mix. Alabama is in that mix. Now, I think that right now, Michigan has a lot of things going for it in the DJ Pickett recruitment. His mother went to Michigan. He has family members that have worked at the university. His grandmother lives in the area. So his brother went to Eastern Michigan. So, he's very, very familiar with Ann Arbor, the surrounding areas, and the University of Michigan itself, both as a football program and as an academic institution. I think everything has really impressed Pickett. He knows he has an opportunity to come in and potentially be a day one starter. I mean, he is the number one safety and the number 7 overall prospect in the country. Could also play some corner at the next level. But yeah, I think Michigan has done a fantastic job in this recruitment. Now, Alabama is starting to gain some real traction here. They hosted him on a visit before the dead period and really opened his eyes. I think they've solidified themselves as a serious contender in this recruitment. So I know Pickett will be closely watching the Michigan-Alabama game. I think this is one recruit where both schools are really, really high on his list. And, the outcome could give the victor, I guess, a little more of an extra selling point as we move into the meat of Pickett's recruitment. And last on the list is on 300 athlete Eric Winters. We went with a guy from the state of Alabama. Not a lot of targets in the state of Alabama, but Winters is definitely a priority. Michigan offered him in late August. He's 6'2", 195 pounds. Listed as a safety, but kind of a positionless defensive athlete, a guy that can play the linebacker spot, maybe come off the edge, maybe stick at safety, a little like Jaden Smith, who signed with the Wolverines this cycle. Michigan has had a bit of success in Alabama in recent cycles. They landed Deuce Spurlock. They landed Carmelo English, which was a big win, beating out Auburn for the home state kid. And English, remember, was an on 300 prospect. So it wasn't like they just got some under the radar guy. They straight up beat Auburn for an on 300 prospect when English sided with the Wolverines. Now, they're going to try to do the same with Winters. Auburn is committed. Auburn is the current favorite here to land his commitment. I think a Michigan win over the home state Crimson Tide would really move the needle with Winters and give him, another push to take an even deeper look at Michigan, which is working hard to get him on campus soon. So for more on targets that Michigan is really recruiting hard ahead of the Rose Bowl and guys that, have mutual interest in Michigan and Alabama and just overall recruitment. If Michigan's able to beat Alabama in the Rose Bowl, we'll have a ton of reactions over at thewolverine.com, and you're not going to want to miss that. So make sure to subscribe to thewolverine.com. Also like this video and subscribe.